A review of integers. We're going to use the list of integers to answer the following questions. The list of integers is as follows: 13, 0, -3, 5, 31, 22, -10, and -2. So how do we know that all of these numbers are integers? Well, we know they're integers because they are all whole numbers. We know that they are integers because they contain both positive and negative values. And we also know that they are integers because there are no fractions or decimals. So an integer is a whole number that can be positive or negative. It also includes the number 0. So in order for it to be an integer, it can't be a fraction and it can't have any decimal numbers. We're going to arrange the numbers in increasing order, and we're going to do this by taking a look at what the smallest number is. And our smallest number in this list is -10, followed by -3, then -2, 0. Then we go into our positive values. We have 5, 13, 22, and 31. So this is our values, our numbers in increasing order. And if it's a struggle for you to, especially with our negative numbers, to determine which one is bigger and which one is smaller, feel free to use a number line, which we'll review in just a moment. So for addition and subtraction, a very helpful tool when adding or subtracting integers, or even when we are putting them in order from ascending to descending or descending to ascending order, and a very helpful tool is that number line. So the number line is 0 in the middle, and then our positive values are on the right. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And we have our negative values happening upon our left-hand side. So -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7, -8, -9, and -10. When we're adding numbers together, we are moving towards the right. And when we're subtracting numbers, we are moving towards the left. So if we're taking a look at these examples right here, we want to think about where we're starting from. So for the first one, it's 3 minus 7. So we're starting at 3 and we're subtracting. So we're moving towards the left and I'm subtracting 7 units. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That gives me -4. If you were able to do this in your head, that's perfect. If you want to use a number line, that's fine. You could also use a calculator if you need that tool as well. Whatever strategy helps you be successful in getting the correct answer. Let's take a look at the next few examples. We're starting at +9 and we're subtracting 15. I'm going to use the number line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, so there's -6. So the number line is great when we have small numbers that we're working with, but when we have larger numbers, it's not always the most efficient tool to use. Now we'll take a look at the next example. We're starting at -2 this time. We're subtracting 4, so we're going towards the left. 1, 2, 3, 4 units, and we end at -6. And our last example, we're going to start at -3. This time we're going to the right because we're adding. So -3 plus 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and we end up at +5. So when we're adding or subtracting numbers, another thing that we want to think about is to remove the brackets first. Well, how do we do that? Well, we do that by eliminating any extra signs. And I'm just going to scratch this part out because it's not always helpful when we're thinking about subtracting to think about adding the opposite. So we're going to focus more on this eliminating extra signs piece here. So a strategy that works is when we're eliminating the extra signs, we need to look at the signs that are directly beside each other. So if we have two negative signs beside each other, then it turns into addition. So two negative signs beside each other turns into addition, or two negatives make a positive, and one of each sign beside each other turns into subtraction. So when we take a look at these examples now, we are going to write 3. That's our very first number. I have two minus signs directly beside each other, so that turns into a positive. So I have 3 plus 4, and that gives me 7. Then we're going to take a look at the next one. I'm starting with 8. I have a plus and a minus sign right beside each other. That's one of each. That turns into a subtraction. So 8 take away 9 is negative 1. Then I move on to the next one. I have negative 4 to begin with. I have a plus beside a negative. That turns into a negative 5, or subtraction. And negative 4 take away 5 is negative 9. And then the last one, I have starting with negative 7. I have a minus sign right beside a minus sign that becomes a positive, or an addition. So negative 7 plus 12 gives me positive 5. So it's always helpful to write the first step and to do that by removing the brackets or to eliminate those extra signs. So once we've sort of reviewed or mastered adding and subtracting negative and positive integers, we're going to take a look at just a few more in terms of thinking about more than two operations at a time, and then we're going to take a look at multiplication and division. So again, I want to start by eliminating any extra signs that I might have. So I'm starting with negative 1. This plus right beside a minus turns into a subtraction, so minus 5, or subtract 5, and plus and a minus is also another minus. So this is something that you can do in your head in one step, or you could use a calculator. Negative 1 take away 5 is negative 6, and negative 6 take away 4 is negative 10. Moving on to the next example, I'm starting with negative 8. So when I'm removing my brackets for my first term, I don't have to write the brackets anymore. I just look at what the sign is for this value. Then negative and a negative turns into a positive 10, and positive plus a negative turns into a minus 3. So I have negative 8 plus 10, which is positive 2, and 2 take away 3 is negative 1. Moving on, I'm starting with 9. Plus and a minus turn into a minus 14. Minus and a minus turn into a positive 7. 9 take away 14 is negative 5. And negative 5 plus 7 is positive 2. And lastly, I'm going to start by eliminating my extra signs, starting with 1. Minus and a minus turn into a positive 3. A plus 7, a plus and a minus turn into a minus 5, and I have minus 6. Again, I'm going to try to do this using my mental math skills. If you need to use your calculator, by all means, don't feel afraid to use that. So 1 plus 3 is 4. 4 plus 7 is 11. 11 take away 5 is 6, and 6 take away 6 is 0. So once we've done some more of those more complicated addition and subtraction questions, it's ready to move on to multiplication and division. Some people find that multiplying and dividing with positive and negative integers is much easier than adding integers, and the rules are very similar when we are multiplying or dividing. If both of the numbers have the same sign, so if they're both negative or they're both positive, the answer will be a positive value. And if the numbers have different signs, so one is positive and one is negative, the answer is always going to be negative. So let's go through some examples for that. 7 times 3, they're both positive, so my answer is going to be positive, and 7 times 3 is 21. Negative 7 times 3, though, is going to give me a negative value, and 7 times 3 is 21. A positive and a negative gives me a negative. 4 times 6 is 24. Two negatives make a positive, and 4 times 6 is 24. The same rules apply for multiplication as they do for division. So two positive numbers being divided gives me a positive number. So 12 divided by 3 is positive 4. A positive divided by a negative gives me a negative value, that's one of each, and 12 divided by 3 is 4. A negative divided by a negative is a positive number. 14 divided by 2 or 7 is 2. A negative divided by a positive is a negative, and 14 divided by 7 is 2. So we can see that strategy working there. And then if we have more than two numbers being multiplied or divided, we have to think about what our number of negative signs might be. So if I have 1, 2, 3 negative signs, remember these first two turn into a positive, and then a positive times a negative is a negative. So another strategy to think about is if you have an even number of negative signs, your answer will be positive. If you have an odd number of negative signs, your answer will be negative. So negative 3 times negative 2 is positive 6, and 6 times negative 5 is negative 30. Negative 5 times negative 2 is positive 10. 10 times negative 1 is negative 10. And negative 10 times negative 10 is positive 100. So if you can do it in your head like that, you are welcome to do that. Some people prefer to do it in steps as well. So you could do negative 3 times negative 2 is positive 6 and show that step. And then from there, you go into your negative 30. You can do the same thing for this next one. So negative 5 times negative 2 is positive 10. Negative 1 times negative 10 is positive 10. And 10 times 10 gives you 100. Remember, if there are no symbols in between your numbers, it means multiplication. So that should be something you're familiar with already. Moving on, we need to make sure that we follow BEDMAS when we have more than one operation in an equation or an expression. I'm starting with my multiplication. Negative 8 times negative 2 is positive 16, and 16 take away 5 is 11. So we have to do the multiplication first before we can do our subtraction. So remember, BEDMAS stands for brackets, and brackets don't mean just like the numbers being multiplied together. Brackets means that there is an operation that is happening inside of that bracket. So brackets, exponents, division, multiplication, addition, and subtraction. So let's take a look at the next one. When we have more than one operation happening, so when we think about BEDMAS, the division and multiplication, it goes division and then multiplication, but because those are opposite operations when we're thinking about solving equations, we can do those in the order that they appear from left to right. So division and multiplication happen in the order that they appear from left to right. Same thing with addition and subtraction. So 6 times negative 3 is negative 18, and negative 18 divided by 9 is negative 2. So you can do those steps if that is helpful for you. Same thing for this next one. I have division and then multiplication. I'm going to go in order from left to right. So negative 15 divided by 5 is negative 3. And I'm multiplying that by negative 2. And negative 3 times negative 2 gives me a positive 6 value. And lastly, this last example here, remembering that I have to do my multiplication before I can worry about doing my addition or subtraction. So I have negative 2, I'm going to still keep that out front, and then I'm going to add whatever I get when I multiply. Negative 3 times negative 4. Negative 3 times negative 4 is a positive value. Two negatives make a positive, and that gives me 12. So I have negative 2 plus 12, which ends up with a final answer of positive 10. If you have any questions about this review lesson, please let me know. Reach out to me by email or sign up for a virtual help session, and I will see you in the next lesson.